Picture this. You're standing in your own home, surrounded by possessions that no longer serve you, feeling like a prisoner in your own space. If you're nodding along, you're about to discover something that will change everything. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the 8th method that completely revolutionized a 45-year marriage and transformed a house from chaos to sanctuary. But first, here's a statistic that might shock you. Research reveals that homes belonging to Americans contain an astounding 300,000 individual items on average. For those of us who've crossed the 60-year threshold, this number frequently jumps by an additional 30% as we become repositories for parental inheritances, adult children's abandoned belongings, and decades of accumulated memories. Here's what's truly alarming. Scientific studies demonstrate that dwelling amid disorder elevates cortisol levels by 15%, directly impacting both cognitive function and physical wellness. Before we dive into these game-changing strategies, do me a favor. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by clutter while facing family resistance to organizing, hit that like button right now. It tells me you're ready for real solutions, not just surface-level tips. And make sure to subscribe because I share practical, life-changing content for our vibrant over 60 community every single week. Today, I'm unveiling 8 specialized decluttering approaches specifically crafted for individuals over 60 who encounter family opposition. The 6th technique completely transformed Katherine's 4.5-decade marriage following years of disagreement about their overcrowded living space. Stay with me, because the tranquility that comes from inhabiting a space that genuinely supports you is worth every challenging conversation you'll need to have. Katherine's transformation journey. Allow me to introduce Katherine, an energetic 67-year-old former educator whose residence had evolved into what she described as a shrine to family obligations. 3 bedrooms overflowed with her deceased mother's fine china, her grown children's high school keepsakes, and her husband James' extensive collection of sporting goods he hadn't touched in years. Katherine described her situation. Whenever I attempted to organize anything, someone would protest, "Don't you dare discard that." But I was suffocating under possessions that weren't even mine. Entering my craft room, which had become a storage facility, would immediately cause my chest to constrict. I couldn't create anything because there was neither physical nor mental space remaining. This predicament unfolds in countless homes throughout the nation. Following decades of family life, our living spaces frequently reflect not only our personal needs and preferences, but also the emotional attachments, expectations, and sometimes obsolete priorities of everyone we cherish. The consequence? Living environments that no longer support us during our prime years. Spaces that should be nurturing our current interests, mobility requirements, and desire for serenity. What makes post-60 decluttering uniquely complex? It's seldom just about the possessions. It involves navigating family dynamics, honoring meaningful connections while releasing the merely nostalgic, and sometimes making difficult decisions that others may not immediately comprehend. Have you discovered yourself hesitating to declutter because a family member objects? Please share in the comments. You're absolutely not alone in this challenge. If this resonates with your experience, share this video with someone who might be facing similar struggles. Sometimes knowing we're not alone is the first step toward change. Today, I'm revealing the precise 8-step system that has assisted thousands of my clients in reclaiming both their spaces and relationships. These aren't merely organizational tips. They're communication strategies, boundary-setting techniques, and perspective shifts that make family-resistant decluttering not just achievable, but truly transformative. Method 1. The Future Self Visualization. The most impactful decluttering technique I teach begins not with sorting possessions, but with clarifying precisely how you want to utilize your space for your next life chapter. Katherine's breakthrough commenced when I posed a question most organizing experts never consider. How would your 75-year-old self prefer to use this home? Most decluttering approaches concentrate on your relationship with the past, what to retain, what to discard. This method flips the perspective to your relationship with your future. Here's the implementation process, the visualization process. First, find a peaceful moment and a comfortable chair in each room of your home. Close your eyes and envision yourself a decade from now using this space. Don't rush this exercise. Spend at least 5 full minutes in each room. Ask yourself, what activities bring my future self joy here? What physical needs might I have that this space should accommodate? What daily rituals would make this room serve my well-being? For Katherine, this exercise revealed something surprising. Her future self desired a first-floor bedroom with space for gentle morning yoga, a reading nook bathed in natural light, and surfaces clear enough that maintaining the room wouldn't require climbing or straining. The exercise also helped her realize that her craft room, currently stacked with boxes, was central to her vision of fulfilling senior years spent creating quilts for her grandchildren. Documentation strategy. Next, document your insights by photographing each room, printing them, and writing your future vision directly on these images. This creates a powerful visual contract with yourself. The magic of this method lies in shifting the decluttering conversation with family members from getting rid of the past to making space for the future, a subtle but profound reframing. When Katherine shared her vision with her husband James, showing him the annotated photographs, his resistance softened. "I hadn't realized how important your quilting was to you," he admitted. "And you're right, we should have a bedroom on the first floor before we need one." The visualization created a shared language that moved beyond defensive positions about individual objects to a collaborative vision for their next life chapter. What does your future self want to do in your home that current clutter prevents? Share one aspect of your future vision in the comments. Writing it down is the first step to making it real. But now comes the question, how do you start the actual decluttering process when family members are emotionally attached to so many items? That's where our second method becomes essential. Method 2. Legacy Mapping Protocol. The second method addresses what I've discovered to be the primary source of family resistance to decluttering: fear that important family history and memories will be lost when objects disappear. The Legacy Mapping Protocol creates a system for preserving the meaning behind possessions while releasing the physical objects themselves. Katherine discovered this was particularly important for her husband James, who resisted parting with dozens of boxes of old sports equipment and memorabilia. "It's not just stuff," he explained, "it's the story of my life." The 3-category system. Begin by creating 3 simple categories for items. Legacy objects. These are the truly irreplaceable items that carry significant family history, perhaps your grandmother's handwritten recipe book or your father's military medals. These items, which typically represent less than 5% of household possessions, deserve proper preservation and display. Legacy stories. These are items valuable primarily for the memories they trigger, not for the objects themselves. These might include your children's art projects, travel souvenirs, or collections acquired over decades. Background noise. This includes the vast majority of possessions, things accumulated almost accidentally, duplicates, or items kept out of vague obligation rather than true connection. Implementation strategy. For legacy objects, create a dedicated preservation space, perhaps a special cabinet, memory box, or display area where these items can be properly honored rather than lost in clutter. For legacy stories, implement the capture and release technique. Set up a simple recording station with your smartphone and good lighting. Record family members sharing the story behind each item, capturing photos of the object from multiple angles. Katherine sat with James as he shared the stories behind his collection of baseball mitts, how his father taught him to play using the oldest one, how he caught his son's first pitch with another. She created a beautiful digital memory book with these stories and images. Once the stories are captured, it becomes much easier to discuss whether the physical items still serve a purpose. Often family members realize it's the stories they want to preserve, not the dusty objects themselves. For background noise items, use the 3-container method. 3 large bins labeled relocate, items that belong elsewhere in the home, release, items to donate or discard, and reconsider, items that need further discussion. The power of legacy mapping is that it honors emotional connections while creating practical systems for distinguishing between truly meaningful items and accumulation that no longer serves you. What percentage of your possessions do you think are legacy objects versus background noise? Share your estimate in the comments. Many people are surprised by their answer. Now let's address one of the most difficult aspects of family-resistant decluttering. Method 3, the Boundary Conversation Blueprint. The third method addresses what may be the most challenging aspect of decluttering with family resistance: establishing clear boundaries around shared spaces versus personal domains. Many of my clients over 60 find themselves in Katherine's position. Their homes have become storage facilities for adult children's belongings, their spouses expand in collections, or items from relatives who have passed away. The Boundary Conversation Blueprint provides a structured approach to these often avoided discussions. The Space Assessment Process. First, create a floor plan of your home and use 3 different colors to mark spaces: shared domains, areas everyone uses daily; personal territories, spaces primarily used by one person; and disputed zones, areas causing organizational conflict. For Katherine, the living room and kitchen were shared domains. Her craft room and James's garage workshop were personal territories. The guest bedrooms had become disputed zones, filled with adult children's belongings and inherited furniture. Creating purpose statements. Next, draft what I call a space purpose statement for each area of the home, a single sentence describing the primary function that space should serve in your current life. For example, the guest bedroom should provide comfortable accommodations for visitors while serving as my home office between guests. The 4-part communication template. Now comes the crucial part, the actual conversation. Schedule it during a neutral time, not in the middle of a decluttering session, in a neutral place, perhaps over coffee at the kitchen table. Use this 4-part communication template. 1. Appreciation. Begin by acknowledging the emotional value of the items in question. I know your childhood trophies represent important achievements. 2. Current reality. Clearly describe how the current situation affects your daily life. Having the guest room filled with storage means I don't have a proper space to work on my writing. 3. Proposed solution. Offer a specific, reasonable time frame and approach. I'd like to help you sort through these items over the next month so we can create a system for what you want to keep. 4. Future benefit. Explain how the change supports your shared future. Having a functional home office would allow me to pursue my writing without leaving home, which means I can be more available for our grandchildren's visits. The inheritance preview process. For items belonging to adult children, consider implementing what I call the inheritance preview process. Invite them to claim what they truly want now rather than guessing what might be meaningful to them later. Katherine used this approach with her 3 adult children, giving them each colored stickers to mark items they genuinely wanted in their own homes. To everyone's surprise, most items remained unmarked.
The children felt free to say they didn't actually want the high school memorabilia and childhood furniture Katherine had been preserving. Have you had the boundary conversation with family members about their belongings in your home? What was the most difficult part? Share in the comments. Your experience might help someone else take this important step. Now let's explore a method that addresses the logistical challenges of decluttering in your senior years.
Method 4. Micro-session momentum technique. The fourth method addresses a challenge that's particularly relevant for those of us over 60, maintaining energy and motivation throughout the decluttering process without becoming physically overwhelmed or emotionally drained. Traditional organizing advice often suggests setting aside entire weekends for decluttering marathons, but Katherine found this approach left her exhausted and resentful, especially when family resistance slowed progress. The micro-session momentum technique takes a completely different approach based on research about habit formation and sustainable energy management as we age. The 20-minute framework. Instead of marathon sessions, schedule 3 20-minute decluttering sessions per day, ideally in the morning when energy is highest, after lunch, and in the early evening. Use a timer and commit to stopping when it rings, even if you're in the middle of a project. This prevents burnout and helps maintain consistent energy across days and weeks. For each micro-session, focus on a single category of items or a space no larger than what would fit in a medium-sized moving box. Katherine began with her bathroom cabinet, then a single kitchen drawer, then one shelf of books. The Success Tracking System. The key to this method is the Success Tracking System. Create a simple calendar where you mark each completed micro-session with a colored dot. As the dots accumulate, you'll visually see your progress and build momentum. Research shows that seeing consistent progress, however small, releases dopamine, the motivation neurotransmitter, making it easier to continue the process despite resistance. Katherine created what she called her Freedom Calendar, placing it prominently on the refrigerator where both she and James could see their progress. She used green dots for completed micro-sessions, gold stars for areas fully decluttered, and special heart stickers for sessions they completed together. Seeing those dots accumulate changed everything, Katherine shared. Instead of feeling like we were facing an impossible mountain, we could see ourselves making real progress day by day. The micro-session technique also makes it easier to involve reluctant family members. Katherine found that asking James for just 20 minutes to sort through one box of sports equipment felt reasonable to him, while the prospect of spending an entire Saturday in the garage had caused him to shut down. After 6 weeks of consistent micro-sessions, Katherine and James had processed more belongings than in their previous 5 years of occasional decluttering attempts. How might you incorporate micro-sessions into your daily routine? Could you identify 3 20-minute windows in your day? Share your thoughts in the comments. Accountability increases follow-through. But even with this approach, you'll encounter items that cause significant family disagreement. That's where our fifth method becomes essential. Method 5. Decision-free sorting system. The fifth method addresses one of the most common points of family conflict during decluttering: differing opinions about what should be kept, donated, sold, or discarded. Katherine and her husband James would often find themselves in circular arguments. But we might need that someday. We haven't used it in 15 years. These debates would stall progress and leave both feeling frustrated and misunderstood. The decision-free sorting system breaks the decluttering process into 2 distinct phases, separating the emotional act of sorting from the decisive act of choosing outcomes. The 5-container system. First, gather large containers, boxes, or bins and label them with these categories: active use, items regularly used and necessary; occasional use, items used seasonally or for specific situations; emotional attachment, items kept primarily for sentimental reasons; Just in case, items kept out of future anticipation rather than current need, and pass along, items you're ready to release immediately. The crucial aspect of this first phase is that nothing is actually leaving your home yet. You're simply sorting items by your relationship to them. This removes the immediate pressure of permanent decisions that often triggers family resistance. The color coding strategy. For shared spaces, each family member sorts independently, using colored stickers that correspond to these 5 categories. This creates a visual map of how different people relate to the same items. Katherine and James spent one micro-session applying their stickers to items in their overstuffed linen closet. The process revealed that James had marked several old blankets as emotional attachment, while Katherine had categorized them as pass along. Instead of arguing about the blankets, they now had a clearer understanding of why these items mattered differently to each of them. The delayed decision protocol. Once everything is categorized, move to phase 2, the delayed decision protocol. Set aside the pass-along items for immediate action, but for everything else, create a simple decision matrix. Items both agree are active use or occasional use have clear homes assigned. Items categorized as emotional attachment by anyone are photographed and stories recorded before further discussion. Just-in-case items are listed in a household inventory but stored in less accessible spaces. For items with conflicting categories, implement the sunset agreement, a specific time frame after which the item will be re-evaluated. Katherine suggested a 6-month sunset for the blankets James was attached to, with the agreement that if they remained unused, they would be donated to the local homeless shelter. This system reduced arguments by 80% among my client families because it acknowledges different perspectives as equally valid while creating a structured pathway toward eventual decisions. Which of your belongings might fall into the just-in-case category versus active use? Share your thoughts in the comments. Naming these distinctions is the first step in addressing them. But what about items that family members have left in your home without taking responsibility? That's where our 6th method comes in.
Method 6, the absent owner protocol. The 6th method addresses a particularly challenging aspect of decluttering after 60, managing possessions that belong to family members who no longer live in your home but haven't taken responsibility for their belongings. Katherine and James had preserved 3 bedrooms full of belongings for their adult children who had moved away years earlier. "It feels like we're running a free storage facility," Katherine lamented. "But whenever I mention it, the kids say they'll get to it someday or tell me not to touch their things." The absent owner protocol provides a respectful but firm framework for addressing these situations. The documentation process. Begin by taking a complete inventory of absent owner items, organized by person and category. Photograph large collections rather than listing every item. This documentation serves both practical and legal purposes. It protects you from claims that valuable items were discarded and helps absent owners visualize the volume of their possessions. The intention letter. Next, draft what I call an intention letter to each absent owner, which includes a clear statement of your needs and plans for the space, photos showing the current situation, a specific time frame for action, I recommend 60 to 90 days, and 3 concrete options for resolving the situation. Katherine's letter to her son Michael included these options. Option A, Michael visits and sorts his belongings within 90 days. Option B, Katherine boxes everything and ships it to Michael's home at his expense. Option C, Katherine sorts items into likely valuable and likely disposable categories, sends Michael photos of valuable items to claim, and donates the rest. Compassionate consequences. The key to this method is establishing and maintaining what I call compassionate consequences. If the deadline passes without the absent owner taking action, you proceed with your stated plan, not as punishment, but as a necessary step to meet your needs.
Katherine was initially anxious about sending these letters, fearing her children would feel rejected, but she included this important sentence: "Creating a home that serves our current life does not diminish our love for you or our desire to have you visit. In fact, it will make your visits more comfortable for everyone." To her surprise, all 3 children responded within weeks. 2 came to retrieve their most valued possessions and gave permission to donate the rest. The 3rd arranged to pay for shipping his items to his home. The bedrooms that had been frozen in time for years are now becoming spaces that serve our current life. One is my husband's reading room with his music collection properly organized. Another is my quilting studio, and the 3rd is a proper guest room where our grandchildren can comfortably stay. Have you implemented clear boundaries with absent owners of items in your home? What has been your biggest challenge in this area? Share in the comments. Your experience might help someone take this difficult but liberating step. But what about items with genuine historical or monetary value? That's where our 7th method is essential.
Method 7. Value Authentication System. The 7th method addresses a common source of disagreement when decluttering the family: differing perceptions about the actual monetary or historical value of possessions. Katherine's home contained dozens of items that family lore had deemed valuable antiques or future collectibles, from her mother's china set to James's vintage sports memorabilia. These perceived valuables occupied prime storage space and were frequently cited as reasons not to declutter. The value authentication system creates an objective framework for assessing items that family members believe may have significant monetary or historical worth. The assessment zone setup. First, designate a value assessment zone in your home, a well-lit area where items can be examined and photographed properly. Katherine used her dining room table, covering it with a clean white sheet to create a neutral background. Documentation framework. Next, create a simple value documentation form for each category of potentially valuable items. The form should include detailed photographs from multiple angles, measurements and condition notes, any known provenance or history, maker's marks or identifying features, current market comparisons. The 3-source verification approach. For items that appear potentially valuable, implement what I call the 3-source verification approach. Professional appraisal for highest value suspects. Online auction and sales platforms showing completed, not just listed, prices. Reference guides or collector communities specific to that category. Katherine was shocked to discover that her mother's china pattern, which she'd carefully preserved for decades, believing it was valuable, routinely sold for less than $100 for entire sets on secondary markets. Meanwhile, several of James's sports programs from the 1960s had genuine collector value she hadn't recognized. Creating a succession plan. For items confirmed to have significant value, create a succession plan that answers 3 questions. Is this item's value likely to increase, decrease, or remain stable over time? Who in the family has genuine interest in preserving or eventually receiving this item? What is the optimal way to store or display this item to maintain its condition and value? The value conversion option. If no family members express interest in valuable items, consider what I call the value conversion option. Selling items of confirmed value and using the proceeds for experiences that create new family memories. Katherine and James sold several valuable sports collectibles and used the funds to take their entire family on a weekend trip to a mountain cabin. Trading dusty memorabilia for new memories together was the best decision we could have made, Katherine shared. The most powerful aspect of the value authentication system is that it replaces family myths and assumptions with factual information, making decisions less emotional and more practical. What items in your home have been designated as valuable by family tradition? Have you ever had them professionally assessed? Share in the comments. You might be surprised at what's actually valuable versus what just takes up space.
The final method addresses perhaps the most emotionally charged category of all: items associated with loved ones who have passed away.
Method 8. Memory Preservation Framework. The eighth and final method addresses perhaps the most emotionally challenging aspect of decluttering after 60. Managing possessions that belonged to loved ones who have passed away. Katherine had inherited complete households from both her mother and aunt within a 5-year period. The grief was overwhelming, she explained. Getting rid of their things felt like losing them all over again, but keeping everything wasn't practical or healthy either. The memory preservation framework offers a structured, nurturing approach to honoring departed loved ones without being buried beneath their possessions. Memory Anchor Collections. Begin by creating what I call memory anchor collections. Carefully curated, space-conscious groupings of items that genuinely evoke your loved one's essence. The key principle is that memory anchors should be visible and integrated into your daily life, not hidden in boxes. For each departed loved one, select 3 to 5 items that most authentically represent them. Perhaps a favorite coffee mug, a well-worn cookbook, or a characteristic piece of jewelry. These become your primary memory anchors. Katherine chose her mother's garden shears, reflecting her passion for roses, favorite cardigan, which still carried her scent, and handwritten recipe collection. For her aunt, she selected a distinctive brooch she always wore, her watercolor paintbrushes, and a small landscape she had painted. The Sacred Space Strategy. Next, implement the Sacred Space Strategy, creating a single dedicated area that honors multiple departed loved ones without overtaking your living space. This might be a memory shelf, a special cabinet, or even a dedicated wall with framed mementos. Legacy Distribution System. For the vast majority of inherited items that don't make it into your memory anchor collections, apply what I call the Legacy Distribution System. Memory Sharing Circle. Host a gathering where extended family members come together in person or virtually to share stories about the departed loved one. After stories are shared, invite family members to select meaningful items. Heritage Packages. Create small collections of items with documented stories that connect younger generations to their family history without burdening them with volume. Legacy Donations. Explore donating items to organizations that were meaningful to your loved one. Katherine donated her mother's extensive gardening library to the community garden where she had volunteered.
The Release with Reverence Ritual. For items that remain, implement the Release with Reverence Ritual, a mindful process of letting go that honors both the departed loved one and your own need for space and peace. This might include taking photographs, writing a letter of appreciation, or simply spending a moment in gratitude before releasing items to new homes. I realized my mother wouldn't want her possessions to become a burden, Katherine reflected. Passing her things to people who would use and appreciate them felt like extending her generosity forward.
What one item from a departed loved one serves as your most powerful memory anchor? Share in the comments. Honoring these connections helps others recognize what's truly worth preserving.
Katherine's complete transformation. 1 year after implementing these 8 methods, Katherine's home had undergone a remarkable transformation, and so had her relationships. The physical change is dramatic, Katherine shared. We've reclaimed over 600 square feet of living space that was previously used for storage. Every room now has a clear purpose that serves our current life. The guest rooms that once overflowed with adult children's belongings and inherited furniture had been transformed into a proper guest room, James's music room, and Katherine's quilting studio. The garage could now actually fit their car, and kitchen cabinets held only items they regularly used. But the relational changes proved even more significant. My husband and I no longer argue about clutter, Katherine explained. The methods gave us a shared language and process for making decisions together instead of getting stuck in the same old conflicts. Their adult children visit more often now that they have comfortable space to stay. They actually apologized for using our home as a storage unit for so long, Katherine shared with surprise. They said they hadn't realized how the clutter was affecting our daily lives. Most profoundly, Katherine discovered an unexpected emotional lightness. I thought I would feel guilty about letting go of so many family possessions, but instead I feel liberated. I'm no longer a custodian of the past, I'm fully present in my life now. The systematic approach made the seemingly impossible task manageable, and the clear communication frameworks transformed potential conflict into collaborative problem-solving. At 68, I finally feel like our home reflects who we are now and what we value, not just the accumulation of our past. And that's given me the space, both physical and emotional, to truly enjoy this chapter of life.
Your next steps forward. If you're struggling with clutter and family resistance like Katherine was, remember this. Reclaiming your space isn't selfish. It's an essential act of self-care that benefits everyone who loves you. Start with just one of these 8 methods today. The future self-visualization is particularly powerful for shifting your mindset from guilt about the past to excitement about your future.
If this video resonated with you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who might be facing similar challenges with family and clutter. Your share could be exactly what someone needs to take their first step toward freedom. Subscribe to the Senior Reset for weekly videos on creating your most fulfilling life after 60. Hit that notification bell so you never miss new strategies for living your best life. Remember, your home should serve the life you're living now, not the life you lived decades ago. The best legacy you can leave your family isn't more stuff. It's the example of living fully in each chapter of your life. What method will you try first? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be here to support you on your journey to a clutter-free, joy-filled home.